Well, hello everyone. So I fitted in the rear carpet in the car, which I think's turned out pretty well. I'm quite pleased with that. And I took a little bit of a break, and I thought I would just show you how the steering wheel came up. And here it is. You can see the finish on it is actually looks fantastic. Very glossy, nice and hard. This is a 2-pack enamel. Which is enamel with a hardener in it, the nasty stuff that's isocyanic, so you have to be a bit careful how you use it. But the finish really is fantastic. It looks terrific. Good as a bought one, as my ex-father-in-law would say. Good as a bought one. So the overall effect is really, really good. However, I can still see some very fine filler marks where I've repaired it. I don't know why that would be, because I put, I reckon, at least 10 coats of primer surfacer on it, wet rubbed it back and put another coat over the top. It's almost as if the filler hasn't quite bonded to the edges where I cut away. I don't really have the heart to redo that, I'm afraid, after all that work, and as I say, the overall effect is brilliant. I might rub it back and just give it one more coat of the black, but I don't know. I'm tossing up between having the original steering wheel and a reproduction wooden one. Of course, the problem with the reproduction wooden ones is you've got to really get one with this star setup on it, otherwise you can't see the instruments. I might fit this, and because it's quite usable, I might fit this and drive the car when I eventually get it on the road and see how the original wheel feels, because then I can decide. I've discovered with my MGA that the original wheel just was slightly too big, so I changed to just a very slightly, I think it's 15-inch rather than a 16-inch wooden one, and that gives me a bit of extra leg room. So I'm a bit disappointed with this, and it's part of the restoration process where you put a lot of work in and then you think, well, why do I bother? But I guess that's fairly normal for anything that's long-winded as a restoration like this. So some things work and some things aren't quite so successful. A lot of people would be quite happy to use that on the car. Personally, I'm not. I think it would just annoy me. The cracks are not that obvious, but they can just be seen, and that's a bit of a bugbear for me. So now I'm going to start working on the rest of the carpet in the car, and I'm going to attempt the transmission tunnel piece, which I think is going to be one of the most difficult bits to fit. So we'll see how we go with that. Well, I'm going to have a go at this tunnel carpet piece here, and I really think this is the bit that's going to give me some trouble. There are a couple of problems to start with. The first thing is that the whole piece is too long, by probably about 1.5 inches, so it's got to be cut. The second problem is that this hole here, I've stuck a little bit of vinyl around the inside of that tunnel hole there for the gear stick, just in case there's any white that shows. But the other problem is that this does not line up. Even when it's butted right up against there, this is, you can see, quite a long way out. So I have to cut some section off here. You can see it's bound there, which I don't think is original. From everything I've read, the carpet wasn't bound in those areas. The other thing is that, as I mentioned before, this piece is in one piece, and I think originally the carpet was in 2 pieces. The first piece goes up to the back of the front tunnel section, and then this back tunnel section, which sits underneath here, the carpet, this sort of lays on the carpet as it goes underneath. That's my understanding. Now, this did have, I mentioned this in an earlier video, this did have a piece of vinyl along the edge, and I think the idea is that as the carpet comes up to there, it stops just before the edge, so you get that nice sort of vinyl piece there to hide it. Now, of course, if I cut the carpet, it's going to have an edge on that that's going to show.
but I've got to make a decision about that because it basically is too big. So either I've got to leave it in one piece and cut bits off the front and the back, or I've got to cut bits off the front and I've got to cut it here halfway. These are the carpet snaps, and unbeknown to me, they came supplied with the carpet, and I bought some as well, so I've got stacks of them, and so I'll put on a few extras. These are the 4 components of the carpet snaps. Well, actually 3 components there. You can see the male piece, a female piece, and this is the ring that goes through the carpet from the visible side and clamps onto the back of this. That's pretty self-explanatory. What I discovered when I pulled off the old ones is that they had a piece of it's like a fibre or a card or something. It's about 1/8 of an inch thick underneath this piece. Oop, where is it? Sorry, trying to do this. I need a camera assistant underneath that piece there. So it meant that the male part was raised up slightly off the base of the floorboards where it was screwed on. I think that might be to lift it up so that when you clamp the top carpet ring onto it, it doesn't pull the carpet ring in quite so much. So I'm going to have a look around and see if I've got something I can use to make those.
Well, it's quite late at night here. You can hear the cricket out there chirping, and I've managed to fit the carpet onto the centre tunnel there. And it wasn't easy, I really must say, principally because the carpet didn't fit quite as well as I wanted it to. And my fingers are pretty sore from tugging on the thing to try and get it fitted. You can see the carpet snaps just down in these locations there. They're sort of reasonably unobtrusive, but they do show. I guess if it was in a black carpet they wouldn't show. I could paint them red, I suppose, but I don't really know that I can be bothered. The centre, the main carpet pieces on the floor there aren't fixed down yet, they're just put into place. Generally, I'm reasonably pleased with it. I'm not, just trying to work my way around the back of the car here, a little bit cramped for space. I'm not very pleased with this side. It basically just didn't fit that well. Below the seam there you can see there's a little bit of fullness and a few creases. I've worked on that for several hours, and really, unless I unpicked all the seam and restitched it in a different position, which I'm not going to do, then that's probably the best I'm going to get. It actually looks worse under the light than it does in daytime, and I guess, you know, as it's been fitted after a while, it will settle in a little bit. These little creases here, of course, probably won't show because once the seat is in, you won't see them. I decided not to cut this piece because of that seam. I thought if I cut it, that seam along there is going to leave a fairly unsightly bulge on the cut. So I decided to do it all in one piece. And you know, really the top of it is good. It's just this area down here that I'm not that pleased with. Okay, so the last piece that I have to stick in place is this footwell piece here. And this has to be glued in. As you can see, I've already glued on the underfelt, and you'll notice that I have come back a little bit here, probably about an inch and a half or so that in this strip here, the carpet will be glued straight on to that metal piece rather than the underfelt. And the reason for that is that the bell housing cover, which slides over the top of that, has to really make a carpet-to-carpet seal across there. Well, the carpet is finished. Well, almost finished. I just have to trim some little bits there. There's some little metal pieces that hold the rear kick panels in place, and there's carpet over them at the moment, but I don't like that, so I'll trim that off and paint those red. I painted these ones up here red, and they sort of blend in quite well. But it's done, and it actually looks pretty good. Some of it was easy, some of it was very difficult. And actually one of the most difficult things I found to do was to get these flat mats in place, they caused me a bit more problems than I thought they would. The runners tended to get in the way, and because these mats are all pre-formed and edged, I wasn't able to cut them, as I think I've said before. I'm sure I'm repeating myself from time to time because I forget what I've said, so I apologise for that if that's the case. But all in all, I think it's pretty terrific. The tunnel isn't screwed down properly yet, but the carpet is in place and it fits quite well. As I said, the other side has got a bit of fullness in it, but you know what, it actually looks pretty good. The colour, as I've said numerous times, is terrific. I like this sort of ribbed effect because it looks fairly original. This has got to be vacuumed. I haven't cleaned any of this yet. But that was one of the difficulties, really. I'm holding a lamp again as I film this. Now, when I fixed these down, I think I mentioned earlier on that there were some little washers underneath the carpet snaps. This is you can see the circle of the carpet snap there. And what I did, if I just peel that back, I hope you can see that. There's a washer that I put, oh, don't go out of focus on me. Okay, there's a washer there that I put underneath the male carpet snap, and that's screwed through the underfelt and into the floor. And I think I said the purpose of these is so that you've got a little bit of lift on those male parts so that the carpet doesn't pull down and leave a sort of an indentation. And I hassled for a while to think of what I could use for that. And what I ended up using were these, which are fibre tap washers, quite hard and cheap, probably a little bit bigger than they should be, and I guess you could cut them to size, but I couldn't really be bothered, and nobody sees them. So the result of that is that the carpet is nice and smooth across the top rather than being drawn down when you do the stud up. One of the problems I really did have was the location of the dip switch. And on the right hand side drive cars, this dip switch sits very hard up against that firewall, and there's no room in there really for carpet, and certainly not for underfelt. So I had to cut away some of the underfelt in that firewall, which means I might get a little bit more heat through there, but I really couldn't get that dip switch to fit. That gave me a lot of trouble. I spent a lot of time on that. I had to use longer screws to screw it into place, and eventually I got it in, but I'm not. It looks fine, and of course nobody really goes underneath there. But I would have been happier if I could have got a better fit around with the carpet there. The other thing I discovered, I've got one of the front kick panels in place there. It's not screwed in, but you can see it's in place. Now that goes underneath the edge of the parcel tray. You can see that just fits underneath the edge. Now I'd already put the parcel tray in place, so I had to unscrew it and reposition it. So that's a bit of a live and learn experience as well. So there we go. Anyway, look, I think the quality of the carpet kit is really good. It doesn't fit quite as well as I had hoped, and because of the binding I can't trim it, as I said. But I guess buying an off-the-shelf carpet kit for a nearly 60-year-old car that will fit properly and perfectly is a big ask. So it's a bit of a compromise, and I'm happy with it. It looks terrific, blends in really well with all the other trim pieces. It's a pity it's under artificial light here because you can't really see the colour, but that's it. I don't know what I'll do next. I've got to make the back seat panel, and there's a few little things I've got to do to tidy up in here, sort out the seat trays, etc, etc. I've got a lot of other things to do around the house, so that might have to wait for a little while, but I think there's some really good progress there, and I hope that anybody watching this and installing a carpet kit in a Healey learns something from my experience and finds it useful.